Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode number 120 of Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I am your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. We call these episodes Fraternity Foodie because there is nothing like great food to bring people together. Today, we are talking about financial independence, a great topic for all of the college students and new professionals that are listening to our podcast right now. We have with us today Diania Merriam, the founder of the EconoMe Conference, an event centered around financial independence. And this is also known as the TED Talks of the FIRE movement. She's also the host of the popular podcast Optimal Finance Daily, where she narrates articles from the best personal finance blogs on the planet. After getting out of $30,000 of debt in 11 months, she used her newfound financial freedom to negotiate a remote working arrangement with her employer. She took a 2-month sabbatical to walk 500 miles across northern Spain on the Camino de Santiago and launch her own business. Diania saves 60% of her income and is on track to be financially independent by the time she's 40 years old. We can't wait to hear more about this. Welcome to the show, Diania.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Oh my God, this is going to be a blast. And this is definitely a topic that our listeners are completely dialed into. This is something they're very concerned about. And so we're going to get into all of this, but I think it's probably helpful if our audience understands a little bit more about your background. And you decided on Montclair State for your college experience. So our audience wants to know, why was Montclair State the right choice for you?
Well, I grew up in New Jersey, fist pumping country, actually. Grew up on the Jersey Shore. And, you know, it's funny because when you're making decisions at 17, 18 years old, there's not a lot of logic that goes into that. It was very emotionally driven decision, I would say. So I remember when I was a freshman in high school and I was in the concert band, the school concert band, and a senior in the concert band was going to Montclair State, and she was just like really popular, and she was a cheerleader. And like, you know, you look at someone like that and you're like, I wish that could be me one day, you know? So I was very much influenced that this popular girl went to Montclair State. Embarrassing to admit it now, but that's like a big factor in my decision. I thought if it was good enough for her, it's good enough for me. The other big reason why I chose Montclair State is because I got a full academic scholarship. So I think it was probably in December of my senior year in high school, they contacted me and they said, if you go here, you have a full academic ride. You like, I don't even think I needed to apply. I think I got like invited to an interview where they like interviewed me, and then, you know, that's how I got in. And what I liked about that is like all of my other, you know, classmates and friends, they were like filling out all these applications and like, you know, it was stressing them out, and they were like waiting until April, I think, to figure out like where they got accepted. So for me in December to just like have it decided, not have to apply anywhere else, and I got a full academic scholarship, it just seemed like a no-brainer. And it was the same school that this popular girl went to, so it had to be good.
I love that story. I mean, full disclosure, I was born in New York City, spent all of my summers on the Jersey Shore, went to Wildwood, you know, after prom. I mean, that was the place to go. So I spent tons of time in that neighborhood, and I totally get it. And, you know, I love that you got this academic scholarship, and that's really what was the motivating factor. Sure, the popular girl helps, but, you know, the full academic scholarship, I mean, I talk about this all the time. I feel like so many college students, when they're making this decision, a lot of it is around the brand, the name, and you know, maybe like, I don't know, all the different features that they get when they go to their campus, whether there's, you know, a huge Olympic-sized pool and saunas and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's what's more important to me is, number one, you know, financially, is this a good decision, or is this going to haunt you for the rest of your life, that you're going to be paying back huge student loans? And I just think that there's other factors other than, you know, what typically draws somebody to a college campus.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like you made the right choice.
I look back on it now, and like, I'm going to be 34 this year. I've had a very successful career, and no one cares where I went to college, honestly. Like, you're the first person that's asked me in many, many years.
Right.
Like, I just can't, what matters a lot more to people is like, where have I worked and what have I contributed to my previous employers? That matters so much more than where I went to school.
Right. 100%. Totally agree. And I just think there's more to that decision than like the amenities or, the name. Right. But I'm glad that you shared that. I think that perspective is important for people when they're considering which school to go to. And right now, college students are always concerned with the amount of debt that they're taking on by going to these colleges and universities. And that keeps climbing, as you know. I mean, the cost just keeps going up and up and up. I'm not sure where it's ever going to stop. And, I'm thinking about my own kids and how am I going to finance all of that? And so I think our listeners can learn so much from you. Talk to us a little bit about your money story. I want to hear about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say that in my 20s are really defined by financial illiteracy. I mean, I was in New York City, living it up, spending with abandon. I mean, I had my 20s. It was a lot of fun. I don't regret it. However, at 28, I found myself 30 grand in debt for no reason. Right. So, and I didn't even know how much debt I had until I got really curious about it because I wanted to go walk the Camino for my 30th birthday. And I knew that I had some debt and that if I was going to take 2 months off of work, I was going to need to finance that somehow because I actually thought that I didn't think my employer was going to give me a sabbatical. It was an unpaid sabbatical. I thought I was actually going to have to quit my job to go take that trip. So I wanted to have a financial safety net. And so I needed to get out of debt and save money to go on this trip. And so that started with me running my credit report and looking at collectively how much debt did I have. And I had no idea that it was actually 30 grand. Wow. And what that was from was half was from student loans, 15 grand of student loans. Now I just told you I got a full scholarship. Where the hell do those student loans come from, right? It's because I took out loans for living expenses. It was so dumb. I think that it was because no one told me that I shouldn't, right? It was offered to me to take out loans for living expenses so I could pay, what was it? $8,000 a semester to live on campus. That's ridiculous. I should have lived off campus and paid rent somewhere much cheaper. Right. And so I took out these loans for living expenses. That was about half my debt, 15 grand. And then the other half was credit card debt just from living outside my means. Right. And I think what got me into that mess is this mentality in my 20s that I had some big ambitions for my earning potential, right? I thought I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. I'm going to be making millions one day. This little debt that I have, I'm going to figure it out later when I'm making my millions. Needless to say, that is not a good financial strategy, right? No one ever told me about the power of compound interest. No one ever told me that if you can't manage $1,000, you can't manage $1 million. Mm-hmm. And so I started reading about this stuff and it completely changed my relationship with my money, my understanding of how powerful a resource money really is. And just my relationship with consumerism in general. So I ended up getting out of that 30 grand of debt in 11 months, and I started saving 60% of my income from there.
Good for you. That is amazing. And I love how you break that down, the 15,000 that you borrowed for living expenses. To all those college students that are listening right now, she just gave you some great advice to start thinking about maybe moving off campus and finding a cheaper place to live. And then talking about the credit card debt. In full disclosure here, when I was in college, I was in the fraternity. We actually did fundraisers. I feel so guilty about this. We did fundraisers of like basically getting students to sign up for credit cards, and we would make money for each application that we got on campus. So naturally, all of our friends and all of our fraternity brothers and all the sororities that we were hanging out with, they all signed up for these credit cards. And I'm thinking, did we do a huge disservice to our friends? Yes, the answer is yes, we did. And, I feel terrible about it because I think about, all of the credit damage that was done back then. And some of them I know it took them years to recover from that. So it's just so important. And I'm so happy that we're talking about it.
And if it makes you feel better, there is a way to play with credit cards that's not going to damage your financial situation. Credit cards are a really powerful tool. Currently, I do credit card churning or travel hacking, where I open up credit cards and then I'm able to get these big signing bonuses of points. And I haven't paid for a flight or hotel in years because I'm using points for that.
Yeah.
If you pay off your balance every month, you don't pay any interest on credit cards. Now it's just like you're using a debit card because you're paying it in full every month. That's a really great way to use credit cards to build credit and also benefit from the points you're accumulating if you're doing credit card churning correctly. So it's not the root of all evil. I'm not like Dave Ramsey where I'm telling you not to use credit cards at all. Just use them like in a strategic way.
Right. I totally agree. Same thing with all of my flights and hotels. I have Capital One for my credit card paid off every month, but all of those points are really valuable. So that way I can get free stuff and get to where I need to go for conferences and things like that. And speaking of conferences, you created this conference about financial independence. What kind of pushed you to create this conference?
Yeah. So, discovering the FIRE movement, which stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. The way that I look at the FIRE movement, it is a lifestyle movement with the goal of financial freedom. And it's really, I like to think of it as financial literacy on steroids, because it's what everyone should be doing with their personal finances. I think the FIRE movement is just really aggressive about it. So for example, a financial advisor is going to tell you to save anywhere from 10 to 20% of your income for retirement. I'm saving 60% of my income. I'm doing all the same things everybody else should do. I am fully funding my 401k, my IRA, my HSA that amounts to about $29,000 a year. And then I'm, throwing savings into an after-tax brokerage. I've got an emergency fund. I've got all of the things in place that is good financial habits. It's just that my savings rate is 60% versus 10 or 20%. So I'm just going to get there faster. I'm not doing anything magical. I'm investing in low fee total market index funds. It's just the savings rate that really distinguishes the FIRE movement from just personal finance in general. So discovering this is what it allowed me to get out of 30 grand of debt in 11 months and start and really boosting that savings rate. And it all boils down to reducing your expenses, increasing your income, and growing that gap between the two and investing it wisely. And so this subject matter changed my life. I mean, it opened up so many more options for me. And I wanted to share it with people. I think when you figure out something for yourself, the only thing left to do is to share it with people. And what do I gain from that? I mean, nothing. I don't make any money off of the EconoMe Conference. I don't make money off of doing this podcast with you right now, right? It's just, what else is there to do with my time except for share this with people because it's awesome. And so I go to this event every year called World Domination Summit, which sounds insane, right? Like, who produces this? Pinky in the Brain or whatever? But this event is incredible. I've gone the last 3 years, and it's all about unconventional living. And every time I go, it's very expensive. It's like $700 a ticket. Doesn't include like accommodations, food, flight, anything like that. So it's like over $1,000 I'm paying to go to this event. But every time I go, I am surrounded by the most inspiring people I've ever met. I'm able to participate in this event that makes me feel differently about my potential. Every time I leave there, I feel like my life is so full of possibility. And I wanted to create that feeling for other people about this topic of money. So that's really my main motivation. And I got the idea for it while I was at World Domination Summit. So I'm at World Domination Summit. I'm so inspired. I feel so good about everything I have going on in my life. And I remember just sitting there after the event was over and I journaled. It was like 13 pages in my journal about this vision that I had for this event and why I was doing it and my motivations for doing it and how I thought it would be valuable to other people. And, to just see it come to life and create something I'm really proud of is just incredibly rewarding.
Totally see that. Now, you've talked a lot about the positives of the FIRE movement, but there also is some criticism, I think, if we're going to be honest. So why does the FIRE movement also get some criticism?
Yeah, I think that when most people hear that I save 60% of my income, they're going to say, well, you must be eating rice and beans every day. You must be making over 6 figures. You must have, no children. You must be leading a life of deprivation in order to save that much. Mm-hmm. Come on, live a little, right? I mean, I hear it every day. Mm-hmm. And I would say that the misconceptions are largely due to people not really understanding what it involves, right? It's built on a lot of assumptions, these criticisms. So the assumption of you have to have a high income. Now I got out of 30 grand of debt in 11 months when I was making less than six figures. I was living in New York City, very expensive cost of living. Yep. My apartment was $1,800 a month in like the bowels of Brooklyn. Right. And yeah. So you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. And I was still able to drastically reduce my expenses because I think you have to change your mind about what do you actually value and how do you align how you're spending your money with what you value? I really valued partying with my friends, right? That was something I really valued. And so when I challenged myself to how can I get more creative and resourceful about getting this need met, you know what I ended up doing? Hosting amazing parties at my apartment. I would host these dinner parties and everybody would bring the booze and I would invent all these games. I made my apartment more fun than a bar. It was awesome. And even when it comes to like clothing, right? So I was never much of a clothing shopper anyway, but I didn't buy any clothing when I was getting out of debt. What I did is I hosted these clothing exchanges. So all my friends who were much more fashionable than me would clean out their closets, bring it all over to my house, and we would like sip mimosas and party all afternoon on a Sunday, swapping clothing, trying on each other's clothing, and we got all that for free. And then the rest we would donate, right? Now, these are things that are actually more fun than like the typical way that I would spend money. And I'm not spending any money, but I'm getting these needs met for human connection and clothing and food. I'm an amazing cook. And I learned that from forcing myself to cook every meal that I ate. You know, people have this idea that it's about deprivation, but I think if it feels like deprivation, you're simply not being creative enough about it or you're doing it wrong, right? There's a lot to be had with self-imposed restriction. I think there's a lot to be discovered there.
Yeah, you and I are alike in a lot of ways. I remember when I first graduated from college, I got my first job, moved out to Long Island. I wanted to have my own place. God forbid I should have a roommate that's going to help me out with paying the rent every month. And I needed to drive a fancy car. So I bought a brand new white Mustang right out of the showroom. And then I wanted to go out and party just like you did. I wanted to be out at the Hamptons. I wanted to be at Fire Island. I mean, these are the places that I wanted to go, and this is where I wanted to be seen. And I think it's just about the priorities, like you talked about, changing your mindset and just bringing the party to you instead of going out and spending a ton of money. Once I did that, I started to recognize, okay, I was making a mistake. Maybe my priorities were a little bit off, but you have to get to that point. And sometimes it's painful getting there, right?
Yeah, I think that most of us who get really interested in fire are because we've experienced some financial pain in order to get here. You know, this conference that I produce, the EconoMe Conference, I do it at the University of Cincinnati. And I thought that students, college students, were going to be one of my big target markets. And they still are in a sense, because most people in the fire movement wish they would have known about this when they were younger, wish they would have understood. When you understand the power of compound interest, it works against you on credit cards, right? Because that interest compounds over time and you end up paying like double, triple the amount of that $12 whatever you bought. Because of interest, you're going to pay like triple for that over time if you just pay the minimums on your cards. But it works for you if you start investing really, really young. I wish I would have known that. If I would have started investing at like 22, I would have had to put so much less money in back then. Now it's like I had to catch up. You know, if you start investing when you're older, you're going to have to invest double, triple the amount than you would have needed to invest if you just would have started with a little bit when you were really young. And so I had no idea about that. I thought that I was going to tell students this and I was going to blow their mind and they were going to be like, sign me up for this conference, because I gave away a ton of free tickets. I gave volunteering opportunities. The reality was they didn't care. And I think it's because college students haven't felt the financial pain yet. Either their parents are paying for them to go to college or they've taken out loans that they don't have to pay back yet. And they're not thinking about it, right? They're thinking about the career they want to start. They're not thinking about paying off their student loans. Some of them are. I've met some young people that are very interested in this. I think that the young people are probably representative of the general population, most people can't even pull together $400 for an emergency expense, right? Most people are not conscious about money in the way that the people in the FIRE movement are. And so I would say college population is very representative of the general population. Either you get it and you hear me talking about it right now and you're like, yes, this is for me, or you listen to me and you're like, nope, I'm going to continue partying and spending my money away. And either one doesn't affect me at all. So you do you. But if you're interested, I would highly recommend to really think about your finances when you're young. And to kind of understand the fact that there is nothing you can buy that's going to make you happy. I know that sounds really in contradiction to what the world is telling you, right? Because we have advertisers, we've got this culture hell bent on consumerism telling you got to buy the fancy car and the nice house and you need to have excessive amounts of money to be happy. But I am here to tell you that it is simply not true. What creates happiness, in my opinion, is your relationships, autonomy over your time, and the ability to create things. You can do that without making excessive amounts of money. Yeah. So, and spending it on stupid shit like, a Tesla or a big car. Sorry, am I allowed to curse on this?
Sure, whatever you like.
So yeah, I mean, I think the biggest things to focus on when it comes to reducing your expenses and living within your means is your housing, your transportation, and your food. So I bought a $6,000 2010 Mazda 3 cash, no car payment. It gets me where it needs to go. And you know what? It's not a fancy car. It's not a Tesla, but I don't want a Tesla. I love my Mazda 3 and it enables me to have autonomy over my time, right? And not have to work so hard to pay off that Tesla. I also put a bumper sticker on the back that says my other vehicle is a 401k just to annoy all the Teslas driving behind me. So I bought a super cheap house and I cook every meal that I eat. My monthly expenses are $3,000 a month. I can pay for that so easily. And that creates a lot of freedom in my life. So as much as it doesn't look glamorous in terms of material possessions, it is super glamorous in terms of time wealth. And I highly recommend it.
I love everything about you. You've got great command of your budget, which I think is the place to start. You know your numbers. You know exactly what you want to hit. You know what your goals are. I think this is all fantastic. I really do. I think this is a great lesson for everybody listening. You also talk about this this FU money. I won't say.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna try to clean it up. But what is FU money and why do you need it?
Yeah. So I guess the polite among us can call it peace out money.
Yeah.
But FU money is really defined as 1 to 2 years of living expenses liquid. So that could be in cash held in a savings account. That could be invested in an after-tax brokerage, in stocks. I have a combination of both. So I have 2 years of living expenses. Half of it is in cash and the other half is in an after-tax brokerage. And what this enables you to do, everyone should have an emergency fund. Everyone knows that, right? Emergency fund is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So the first step is just knowing what your living expenses are, to be able to save an emergency fund. But beyond an emergency fund, when you have FU money, it doesn't mean that you're financially independent. It doesn't mean that you can retire early. That's when you have 25 times your yearly expenses, you are said to be financially independent and you have the option of retiring early if you wanted to. Now, when you have FU money, you still have to work, but you no longer have to work at some place you don't like. So you get a new boss who's a pain in the ass. Fuck you, money. I'm walking out. I'm leaving, right? Something happens in your life where your circumstances change. You have an incredible safety net to be able to use your time in the way that you want to use your time. So you no longer need to slave away at something that you don't enjoy. So I actually just quit my job because I have FU money. And it was because the management of the company changed and they no longer valued me after 9 years at the company. And they demonstrated that very clearly after I have made the company a lot of money as a salesperson. And so I decided that it was not in my best interest to stay somewhere that didn't value me. And so I quit. Without another job, without any sense of where my future income will come from. I had a lot of ideas. I have a lot of confidence in myself that I'm going to be able to get a pretty great income one day through self-employment. But I had the ability to walk away from something that didn't serve me because I had FU money. And I just think it's very empowering to be in that place, to be able to have more autonomy over your time and energy. It's super, super important. And one way to really exercise that is to have that FU money.
Wow, that is beautifully said and great definitions along the way. I love what I do. I'm going to be quite honest with you. I love speaking to college students and traveling the country and working on college campuses. I mean, for me, it's just like the ideal thing to do. So why should I care about financial independence if I have absolutely no intention of retiring early?
Because things change. So let's say you started showing up to college campuses and they're like throwing tomatoes at you while you're on stage, right? Like all of a sudden the dynamic of your work situation has changed. And even though you didn't expect that, you'll be glad that you had FU money or the ability to retire early or go do something else, right? Let's say that one of your parents falls under hard times and, you know, is at the end of their life and you want to take a year off of work so that you can be with your parents in their final days. You have the ability to do that now because you don't, like, you're financially independent. You don't need to work. I think that it's all about options. Retiring early is an option that you open up for yourself when you reach financial independence. It doesn't mean that you have to exercise that option. There's no retirement police out there holding a gun to your head saying, you're financially independent. Don't you think it's time to retire? No, that's not how it works. I also think that retirement, the definition that most people think of it as retirement is I'm not working anymore, right? I don't know that retirement is about not working, because I wouldn't recommend to anyone to stop working and then sit on the couch all day or sit on a beach all day. You're not going to be satisfied in your life if that's what you're doing. Even if you retire at traditional retirement age, please don't sit in front of the TV all day. Go find something to do, right? And that's something to do to some people may look like work. That's something that you choose to do. It's possible that it could earn you a bit of an income, but that's not why you're doing it, right? So I think about the EconoMe Conference. I dreamed this up because I asked myself, what would I do with my time if I didn't have to work for money? I would create a party about money. That's what I would do, right? I would create something that was as entertaining as it is informative. And I would want to try to share this excitement that I have about money with people. And so that was supposed to be my retirement project. I didn't have any concern off of making money for that. I didn't want it to provide for my livelihood. I wanted it to be a creative endeavor. I just got so damn excited about it. I couldn't wait. So I ended up doing it now. Now, this is something that looks like a full-time job to people. This looks like work. To me, it's just what I do. It's what I'm proud of. It's what I've created. To me, EconoMe is like my baby, right? And it doesn't provide an income for me. It is a lot of work, but it's very satisfying in non-monetary ways. And so I would challenge you to think, when you talk about, I don't want to retire, I guess it really depends on how you define retirement. Because if you define it as doing nothing all day, well then, yeah, that sounds awful. You should never do that.
Right. I never want to do that. That sounds awful to me. That sounds absolutely awful. Like, I always want to help people just like you. I want to take whatever knowledge I have, give that to other people. And that's what makes me feel good, is watching them implement these ideas and then go out and be really successful in their student organization, in their fraternity, their sorority, in their career. And then they come back and they share with me all of the things that they've done with the information I've given them. That to me is everything. That's what people don't understand. I mean, when I have that moment and I remember that student, I remember our conversations, and they're actually repeating back to me what I said up on stage, I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know what I had for breakfast yesterday, but you're telling me what I said on stage a year ago blows my mind, and that they're doing good things with it. They've received results from everything that I've given them. That to me is the reward. That's it.
Well, and that's amazing. Now, most people want to do work like that, right? But they want it to also provide their livelihood. Sure. Now, imagine how much more impactful you could be if there was absolutely no pressure for that work to provide for your livelihood. That to me is what wealth is, right? If I think about someone really rich, like Bill Gates, right? Does he think about what's going to make him more money? I don't know. I hope not. He has more than enough money, right? He's making decisions based on how he wants to use his time and how he can make the biggest impact. He doesn't care about the money, I would hope, right? That is what I think we should also aspire to, because that to me is what true wealth is.
Yeah, he's trying to give it away to as many good causes as he can.
Exactly.
Eliminate polio, whatever is on his mind. That's what he wants to do with the money. He's trying to find ways to give it away, not to necessarily make more of it.
Exactly.
It's how can I give this money to somebody and trust it that they're going to go out and do something really amazing on this planet, like cure polio or whatever it is that he's trying to do. And now obviously he's getting involved with COVID-19 and other things. But now I really understand where you're coming from, and I love the direction you're going. I think, this is a huge conversation on college campuses, and I see this much bigger than just University of Cincinnati. I think this is a bigger conversation on every college campus, to be honest with you.
Well, I hope so. That's the dream. Build the economy empire, Yeah,
I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, we do love good food here at Fraternity Foodie, so I'm not going to shy away from that. What is your favorite restaurant in the Cincinnati area, and what are you usually ordering over there?
Oh, man. I just told you I cook every meal I eat. My favorite restaurant is Casa El Diana. Is that how you say it? I feel like someone listening to this actually speaks Spanish and sees that I totally butchered that. But yeah. So I think I should answer this of like what I love to cook.
There you go.
So one of my favorite meals, I would say, is pasta carbonara. It's so simple. It's basically like, what's the word? I'm like a BLT or, I'm blanking. I read this somewhere on this is like the pasta version of, like a bacon, egg, and cheese.
Got it.
Right? It's the pasta version of that. It's super simple to make. It's so good. Every time I make it, people are impressed. It's a real crowd pleaser. So yeah, my favorite is my own restaurant here in my kitchen making pasta carbonara.
It's so fitting. You don't advocate to go out and spend money on restaurants. You're like, no, don't do that. Cook at home. It'll save you money and you can make something really delicious.
Well, the thing is that it's about value, right? Yeah. Trading money for value. Almost every time I eat out. Now, there are definitely exceptions, but most of the time when I get takeout or I go out to a restaurant, I'm like, I could have made something better than this. I know that sounds egotistical and arrogant, but it's true. I can cook something better than I can buy at a restaurant. I know I can. So it's just not a good use of my money. Yeah. And, there's not enough justification to trade that money for the value that eating out brings me.
I love it. I absolutely love it. All right. So if our listeners want to learn more about you, maybe they want to learn about the EconoMe Conference, they want to listen to your podcast, maybe connect with you on social media, where is the best place for them to go?
Absolutely. So you can check out the conference at EconoMeConference.com, and economy is spelled with an M-E at the end, not an M-Y, because I am very clever. So yes, EconoMeConference.com. You can also go on YouTube, and if you just search Economy Conference, you will see all the videos from last year. And particularly relevant for your audience, we had an amazing speech by a guy named Travis Hornsby about how student loan debt doesn't need to hold you back. Student loan debt is a really different kind of debt than, say, credit card debt. Like when I was attacking my credit card debt, I just attacked it really aggressively to just get it out of the way. That might not be the best strategy with your student loan debt, because there's no compound interest on student loan debt. So there's just different tactics to address that. And Travis does an amazing job of laying that out. So definitely look at Travis Hornsby. Student loan debt doesn't need to hold you back. And then you can also check out all the other videos from last year at the EconoMe Conference YouTube channel. You can also listen to me on my podcast every single day called Optimal Finance Daily. And this is a daily show where I am serenading you with the sweet sounds of personal finance knowledge. It's actually a narration style podcast. So I'm reading posts from personal finance bloggers, and then I'm offering you my own commentary on it. So it's 10 minutes or less every single day. It's a wide variety of topics from, paying down debt to, investing, to student loans, to, what do I do when I want to buy a house, all that kind of stuff. So definitely tune into that. And then yeah, on social media, Twitter and Instagram, we're at EconoMe Con. Facebook, we have a group called For the Fi Curious. So if you are Fi Curious or Bi Curious, come check us out at For the Fi Curious on Facebook.
This has been absolutely fantastic. I'm going to put a link to Travis's talk at the EconoMe Conference in the message here right underneath this video, and hopefully that everyone will go and check that out, because absolutely students are 100% concerned with it. I love your podcast and these 10-minute bites. Definitely very easily digestible and a great way to connect with you on a daily basis. I think that's absolutely awesome. Diana, you are amazing. What can I say? I hope that every college student in America listens to this podcast, because they have a lot to learn from you. And I think your priorities are right on. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks so much, Michael. This has really been a pleasure.
Cool. I had a lot of fun. And to all of our listeners, if you really enjoyed Diana's talk, please like this and share this with other people that are also financially curious. I think that's really awesome. And we hope to see you on another episode of Fraternity Foodie. Bye for now.